Today's episode is brought to you by Con Before the Storm. You've still got time to support the Con Before the Storm Kickstarter, so do it.
It's high noon.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to High Noon Podcast, the competitive Overwatch podcast. I am your host, the Blevins. With me, as always, is Deathblow. What's up, buddy?
Not too much, man. Good week to be an Outlaws fan.
It is a great week to
The
be an Outlaws fan.
Outlaws are coming.
And the even better part is that I get to root for them up until the last week, at which point I will be locked and loaded, playoff ready, playoff bound, season playoff ready. I'm going to be able to be sitting pretty in the last match. You're probably going to be in a little more of a sweat. Maybe, who knows? But I get to root for them and bask in their success for most of the stage as well. So that's good for me as a somewhat Houston Outlaws supporter. I'll say I won't call myself a full blown fan, but a supporter for sure.
Fan of their play more than the team, I think.
I'm a longtime Linkser fanboy,
Yeah.
not nearly to the same extent as you, but we have been following him since the days when they were literally called Google Me. I think there's probably a very small number of people who are going to... Yeah. Well, Creation Esports, it was before Creation Esports. They were Google Me.
I thought Google Me went to 9. But anyways, this is like
Or maybe
ancient
it was-
history, so
or
we
wait,
don't even
was
need
it
to worry
Google?
about it. Flat Earth. Wasn't it
Flat Earth. Yeah, you're right. It was Flat Earth. Sorry, not Google Me. Yeah, it was... yes. Flat Earth became Creation. Okay. So even myself...
We got there.
Yeah, we got there. Hex will know. Hex and ZP know, and maybe like two other people, but not many else. But yeah, so a lot to cover this show. Obviously, we are back in the swing of things. Stage 4 starting up here. And well, I mean, we had a couple upsets, but not the one that everyone wanted. Well, we'll talk about that. But let's first talk about High Noon Productions and what we are doing. We had a top 10 plays of the week out, of course. Actually, maybe we didn't because there wasn't a week last week, so there wasn't one this week. But
There will be this week
There
coming
will
up,
be
though,
this week coming up, but not. So maybe by the time you hear this, it will be up. We did have an Around the Payload episode up this week, and guys, remember, Around the Payload, for all intents and purposes, is going to be bi-weekly. So don't expect one every week. If it does happen, it'll be a nice little treat. But it's just like, in talking with people and talking with guests and stuff, it's just tough to do one every week, as sad as that one is. But we're going to try to get... it's definitely going to be bi-weekly, and maybe we'll get some extra weeks at the end of the season, potentially. But I'm not making any promises. But we did have... from Esports, we had Nicole Carpenter on. We had, of course, the... very infamous Taco. We had the Batman to my Commissioner Gordon, Volamil, and we had Melarina, host of Owl Recap and the Cavalry. So really great episode. It was just like everyone seemed to really kind of gel together on that one, and it was a really good episode. Definitely check that one out for sure. Of course, another Blackwatch report, I believe episode 16, something like that for Blackwatch report. But they're really hitting a stride too. They're getting some good guests. There's some guests they have in the pipeline that are coming up that are very exciting for the Path to Pro and Contenders scene. So definitely, if you are looking to know more about Contenders or just the Path to Pro in general, check out Blackwatch report. They have really kind of grown. 15, sorry, Blackwatch report number 15. Definitely check that one out. Foul Play had an episode last week. We just recorded. If you're listening to live, you saw the double feature live at twitch.tv/ShinyNewPodcast. We just recorded another episode of Foul Play. But that is, you guys went over kind of a little bit debunked information just because of they didn't announce what the patch was going to be on, but definitely very interesting from the Brigitte side, and who's going to be playing the Brigitte as well. So that
how
was good.
wrong we were too.
Right.
Fascinating.
but it's very fun, definitely to look at that. And then I believe another All Things Considered is coming out or did come out.
I expected to have the episode already, but yeah, Taco's peaking in episode number 2 as he's interviewing yours truly on his second ever episode of All Things Considered. He's peaked in the name category. He's peaked in the guest category. Now it's official. Taco, wrap it up. You're done here. But no, in all seriousness, it'll be a weekly Tuesday show. So keep an eye out for that. We don't have the episode yet, but we will be getting that up tomorrow, I'm sure. Taco loves to tinker in post-production editing. So.
Yeah, I don't think I got the episode yet, but that will be up. I believe he has his own podcast feed, its own podcast feed set up, but you'll also be able to hear at least this next episode, maybe another one. We'll probably throw another one in the Heinen podcast feed as well, just to get it out there. So definitely keep an eye out for that, and leave reviews on the. I mean, just as a blanket statement, leave reviews for all of the shows that you like to hear, and because we will be reading them, and they do help out a lot for all of the shows. So definitely there. But enough about that. Let's talk about what we did last week. Death, anything fun and exciting for you?
No, I got in a car accident. Does that count?
That
yeah,
sucks.
no, it was a bit of a rough weekend this past weekend, but I'm okay. Everybody it was okay. There was a couple minor things or whatever, but nothing too crazy. Just big inconvenience. I've got a nice rental car out in the parking lot now, though, so I guess that'll be cool for a couple days.
The Nissan Altima that we drove to Boston?
It's not. It's a Corolla. But what can you do? Either way, it's nicer than my car because I drive a Focus. But yeah, so yeah, kind of a goofy weekend, but overall not too bad. Obviously, how many times are we going to play the Outlaws clip this weekend? Yeah, it was a great week from an Overwatch side, and looks like you're reaching, so I'm more than happy to let you play it again if you want to.
We'll play it.
The Outlaws are coming.
Best feature of the live show is getting to watch us pretend like we're riding horses and do finger guns whenever we play that. So make sure you catch the live show if you can at all, if at all possible. But yeah, what about you, man? What'd you do this weekend?
So I went to, if you can tell on YouTube, I'm wearing a different hat. I do still have the XL hat, so don't worry. People literally ask me that all the time. Like when I'm streaming, they'll be like, "Blevins, where's your hat, man? What are you doing, man? Where's your hat?" I'm like, It's right here. I have it. It's just I'm sweating because I just walked here. I'm a filthy pig. But I'm wearing a different hat right now. It's actually a hat. It's the Rochester Plates. So we've talked a lot about garbage plates on the show.
Would it be a High Noon podcast episode if we didn't do 5 minutes on either souvlaki or garbage plates? That's the real question.
It's true. We've talked a lot about garbage plates. They're a cuisine, a delicacy, if you will, that is home only in Rochester, New York, and somewhat the greater Rochester area, but really not anywhere else. Not even in Buffalo does it really exist. No. There's references to it sometimes. Most people in Buffalo I don't know what that is, and it's only an hour away. So, obviously I grew up mostly in Rochester, and through our Magic experiences also, I think that's where you probably got you also went to school in Rochester.
Yeah, I went to college.
That's right. Yeah. So I grew up in Rochester. I played basketball in Rochester more than Buffalo. And then you went to school there. And then I actually went to school there for a little bit, but we are very much home to the garbage plate. So the Rochester Red Wings, which is the minor league affiliate of the Minnesota Twins, who notably has a player by the name of Trevor May, who I'm sure you know of, and we've talked to, had on on ATP as well. He's playing for them right now as he's coming off injury, so I went there to go watch the game, and they just by happenstance had this promotion thing where in May and June they're playing as the Rochester Plates. So I'm like, I absolutely 1,000% need to get a hat. Don't care that I have 100 hats. There was no, and also I got a shirt too. But there's just no way I'm missing out on that.
They also got two pretty big fans of their team that I didn't even know existed, but now they're my favorite baseball team. So.
I like the Red Wings even since I was a little kid, but yeah, definitely. So I'm going to try to maybe catch another game while Trevor is still playing, maybe see him pitch and maybe get a chance to talk to him for a little bit. But who knows? He's, a literal Major League Baseball player, so I don't know what his schedule is like. And also, I don't know if you've checked, and this is obviously still a tangent, but it's still on point here. So I was checking the schedule for the Rochester Red Wings, and I'm like, man, I wonder when they have a day off. In the month of May, they have literally 1 day off. They played 31 games in the month of May.
So they had a doubleheader in there, and then
they have multiple. Maybe it's 32. They have multiple doubleheaders in this. Yeah. It's like they play 32 games in 1 month. And yet people are saying that the Overwatch League plays too much.
The Overwatch League needs to take more time off in between stages and games. The schedule's too daunting.
Yeah.
That's my Reddit voice. I debuted it on Foul Play. I'm going to bring it to everywhere I go.
It's good. It checks. It checks out. I'm not trying to say that baseball requires a lot more physical activity than Overwatch, but it certainly requires more. It certainly does. So suck it up and deal is all I have to say about that. It is insane how much baseball those guys play day in and day, literally every single day. So, I don't know. Stop crying, I guess. I really don't know what more to tell you. I don't know. We're probably going to get flamed for it. But until Trevor May comes on and says, hey, man, it's not the same. And actually, that'd be a really good question. I don't know. Maybe we'll have him on for a hot seat or something. So let's move on. That's pretty much the brunt of my weekend. But let's talk about what you guys did last week, which of course leads us into the
Overwatch Today meme of the week.
And this week is a meme brought to you by yours truly, as well as you, Deathblow, in a sense. I mean, I physically made the meme, but we created this meme together.
I know you did because you spelled his name wrong.
Oh.
There's no B.
Well, it's too late to change now, but we got this meme right here. I knew it looked weird. That is, we're of course.
It's my favorite part about the meme, to be honest.
It's even better. We're continuing the meme here, the Office Space meme. That is, of course, Numlocked as Milton from Office Space. He played. So, and this, I think the funny thing about this picture is that it's like, you can just imagine like them calling his name and him being like, huh? What?
Wait, me?
Me?
You say that wrong?
Are you sure it's me? So that's great. Thorn is telling me that we need to tweet that out. I don't know, we'll probably tweet it out, but definitely not adding anyone on that one. But yeah, I'll remake it with the correct spelling and then we'll tweet it out. But yeah, I just so happy to see him play, and so happy we talked about it on Foul Play, but so happy to finally start seeing garbage time in Overwatch League. Like I've been waiting for this to happen for a while, and it's finally. I mean, teams are finally confident enough to be like, okay, we can play our non-starters against the Shanghai Dragons.
Didn't go well, but yeah, they certainly did it. So something to keep an eye out for. But that'll kind of wrap things up. And I think you have your favorite drop to play here now, right? Or no, we don't really have much in the news.
I mean, that's definitely not going to stop me from playing it. Or maybe it is. I can't find the button. Oh God, did I lose? Oh, there it is.
It's
news. Yeah, I mean, we don't have any news to talk about, but I just wanted to play the drop. Is there anything? I don't know. I don't have it written down, so it doesn't exist. But let's move on. Let's just move on to the next section.
It's tournament talk.
That, of course, is tournament talk. Let's quickly go over the matches from Stage 4. Week 1, we saw the LA Gladiators defeat the San Francisco Shock 3-1. LA Valiant winning against Seoul Dynasty here 3-2. Dallas Fuel, technically according to High Noon Pick'em, upsetting the Shanghai Dragons 3-1. Come on, guys. Come on.
Also according to my heart.
Yeah, according to everyone's heart, sure. Thursday, May 17th, we saw, Philadelphia Fusion beat the Boston Uprising 3-1. New York Excelsior 3-0ing Florida Mayhem, and the Houston Outlaws continuing their dominance over London Spitfire 4-0. Moving on to Friday.
Brooms out.
Yeah, get your brooms out. Moving on to Friday, we saw LA Gladiators 4-0 the Dallas Fuel. Houston Outlaws continuing their new meta hype here, 3-1 over Boston Uprising. San Francisco shocking the world, 3-1 over Seoul Dynasty. And then moving on to Saturday, we saw Philly Fusion 4-0ing the Florida Mayhem. LA Valiant winning 3-1 versus Shanghai Dragons. Shout out Numlocked. And NYXL rounding out the week 3-1 over London Spitfire.
Big week. Crazy week.
Big week. We have, I don't know how to quantify this, but we have a reliable source in Blaze and Bob saying that another, I'm pretty sure, reliable source of DoubleTap.com saying that Effect is coming back in Stage 4, I'm assuming. So take that for what it's worth.
Definitely not going to hurt them. Obviously, you know, we've talked a lot about how he is essentially, you know, their best player, their highest skill player. You know, he had a lot of the, you know, the frankly scary tweets, you know, discussing things like suicide and stuff like that, and it's obviously nothing you really want to see.
Definitely a mental health issue for him.
But for what it's worth, I went to the DoubleTap.com website and I sure don't see anything. So we will have to kind of put a pin in that and discuss it next week, I guess, if it does come back. But something to keep an eye out. At least the rumors are swirling. I certainly don't think Bob is deceiving me. I just can't find it to verify, so I don't want to misrepresent the information. Also,
it might just be the wishful thinking of the Blue Bag podcast. That is certainly going to be. But let's talk about a couple of things here. I just had a couple of topics, so maybe we'll talk about some more here. Bob did post the link, so maybe you can check that out, Death, and we'll circle back around to it. But Brigitte definitely having an effect on the meta for sure. Some teams deciding to turn right into it and definitely play it. Some teams being like, we don't need it. And it's not that with the exception of kind of New York in some of their games, it just didn't really work. When you're trying to just outplay the Brigitte as the tracer, even when you're a player like Striker, it's just not the way to do it.
It's a good way to get tactical crouched on by Jake. We saw that for a fact. But yeah, Brigitte meta definitely really, really impactful. A little less so than we thought, but again, nobody had experience with this meta. Yeah, nobody has experience with this meta, right? It was essentially on live servers for 2 days. We didn't really get a chance to see it develop or really. Personally, I didn't spend a lot of time. I just didn't have time. We didn't know the Hanzo patch was coming 2 days after the season started or anything like that. But, you know, I just didn't get a chance to play much in those first couple of days of the season. And so we really didn't know what kind of impact it was going to have. A little less than I think I anticipated. Like I expected to see it pretty close to like a staple pick. But a lot of maps in this stage and in this meta really favor high ground, like Gibraltar, first point and second point. Like, how do you, if you can't, like Brigitte doesn't get on top when you're attacking, doesn't get on top of the spaceship and Gibraltar second. So it's really kind of difficult in a way to run that on the attack. Not impossible. Houston did show you can just not play a main tank and play Brigitte instead on that map in particular and do just fine. But definitely creates some really interesting picks. And so far over the course of the first week, looks like easily the most diverse meta that we've seen within Overwatch League. So despite all and I still feel it, despite the disappointment that it's not on the live patch, watching this week and as it was about to start, all that melted away. I just wanted to see some Deathball Overwatch. I just wanted to see a new meta. It didn't have to include the Hanzo anymore. So and now after watching it play out, it looks really dynamic, really, really fun. And I think from a spectator's perspective, we're in for a treat this stage. You know, it's unfortunate that it's not the live patch, but in a way, it's very possibly, to use one of my past made-up words, better, to be perfectly honest. So I'm kind of reserving judgment here for how this worked out, but I've got to say, in the future, even if there's not a bug preventing them from doing it, you know, if they just think it's a better, more diverse meta that's more interesting for Overwatch League, I might be willing to hear them out on that. It was honestly a really, really fun week this week.
Yeah, and I mean, I think it's definitely a smaller impact than we suggested, though. A number of the ATP guests last week were like, it's going to have a big effect, but not immediately. It's going to be more of a slow burn, I think was the term that I think it was Volamel, but I might be misrepresenting who said it. But at least one of the host guests on ATP last week said it's going to be kind of a slow burn in terms of Brigitte's impact. And I think that this week kind of plays directly into that. Some teams really embraced it, did well. Other teams thought, especially like Boston. I mean, you think back to stage 1 Boston of being like, oh, they just dive and then they dive and they dive and they just dive better because Striker's a god at Tracer. So it doesn't matter what the other team is running. They just dive. And if dive is really bad, they're probably going to lose. And if it's even remotely a 50-50, they're going to win that coin flip every time. Now it's just not a 50-50. Brigitte makes it not a 50-50 because you can only outskill other players as the Tracer when you have control of your character. And when you get shield bashed, you sure don't have control of your character, and you sure are going right back to spawn the second that happens. And it is
watch the Houston matchups if you want. In all honesty, both Boston and London just kind of dove into Houston, who was very willing to play the Brigitte in this meta. They just dove into it repeatedly, and Jake styled on them, just absolutely styled on them. It was brutal. Tactical crouches everywhere. As he had sore knees this week from all the crouching for sure. But it was interesting, and something we're going to be talking a lot about as we go down the matchups for next week is what teams ignored the new meta and really didn't plan for it or strat for it, what teams embraced it. And you're going to see a very strong correlation between the teams that we think are very strong this stage and the teams that embrace the meta, look like they had a plan. They really looked heads and shoulders above the rest of the field this week.
Yeah, I mean, talking a little bit about that before we get into the actual matchups for this week, let's talk more. I want to talk more about like Houston. Obviously, you've been a big Houston fan for a long time. We've been predicting Houston being good in this meta. I mean, even with the Hanzo change not going into effect, we saw them be very, very good this past week. Is this going to continue? Is this meta really, are they the real deal here? Do we see a stage playoff or potentially even a stage champion team in Houston with this patch?
I think you have to consider it a very real possibility no matter what. Now, when you say stage champion, that means to me you're talking about a Boston stage from last week. Do they have 10-0 in them? Do they have the ability to beat New York in the finals?
Are they going to be the one? Are they going to be the one loss for New York this stage?
Right. That's a real question. One, that I honestly am very excited to see the answer to, right? Because we've seen even last stage, Houston played New York very, very closely. And now the tables have really completely turned. That was an unfavorable map pool. That was an unfavorable meta game for Houston. They went to 5 against New York, and now it's a favorable map pool and a favorable meta for them. But to me, when you ask, are they stage champion caliber, that rests with one person. Okay, we saw a performance from Jake this week like we've never saw in stage 1, I don't think. Like we've never seen in Overwatch League. He absolutely shined. His Hanzo was very, very good. His Pharah was downright incredible. His Brigitte was one of the better that we saw on the week. He had a phenomenal week. He showed a flexibility on every single hero, and he's still the best Junkrat in the game. I don't care what the stats said about Linkser and Jake, and this is something that hopefully people catch up to later on. Stats follow wins and losses in a lot of ways. Like if your team's losing, your tanks probably died a lot, and your team probably died a lot more, so that's going to hurt your stats. But right now we're in a position where Jake's going to get to spend a good amount of time playing as Junkrat, where he's the best in the league. Linkser is still, from literally the game's release, been my number one Widowmaker player. Certainly nothing I saw this weekend is going to change that. So as long as they can get things into position and get everything figured out and play with the same, they had pocket strats immediately out of the gate in their first match on the new meta. Like they studied this. They seem to have figured it out better than most of the other teams. There's really only one that I think is in the same ballpark. my second favorite team, thankfully. So it's a good stage for me. But yeah, they're certainly in that conversation. I think they've got to be your favorites, right? Of the teams that have the potential to upset New York for the stage. Houston is at the top of that list right now. And it's all going to be down to whether or not Jake can continue to perform like that, because we've seen it again now in these slower anti-dive death ball metas. Bonnie doesn't die. He does all the time in the dive meta. He doesn't die in these metas. Their support play is much better. Honestly, I thought Rockus had an off week this week. Oh, how much did it matter, right? Like there was a couple times he got out of position, got picked on King's Row especially. It was just they're a phenomenal team in this style of play. They're one of the most teamwork oriented teams. So when you line up the meta, the map pool, everything like that, it really, really does feel and look like, so far at least, Houston's at the top of the heap. Now, we've seen enough inconsistency from them in the past. Last stage, I said they were playing really, really well at times. Then they go out and get 0-2. They lose the soul and the shock in the 5th week. They have that potential in them. I can't sit here and tell you they don't. Right. It's honestly something that I'm worried about. But the stage is set, and they seem to have the confidence that they need back, and you could see it right away. And just Lynxer's positioning, everything that they're doing right now looks phenomenal on tape. So I'm really happy, and I think they're the real deal. But we just need to watch out for I guess I don't know the right word for this, but the backslide, I guess.
Right, the variance in it. I mean, they definitely couldn't ask for a better environment to be the real deal. This is their ideal place to be, for sure. I mean, the only counterpoint I have here for that is that the week that Jake and Lynxer have great weeks is a week where Jonak literally breaks where technically both Jonak and SBB both break the record for fantasy points in the same week. Yeah. But the only reason that SBB doesn't get it is because Jonak also broke it at the same time and had over 400 points in fantasy. And if you're not a fantasy player or enthusiast, you definitely should be, because that's fun to play, and check out Foul Play as well. But 400 points is like a 200-point week from most players is a very, very good week. A lot of players are never going to get 200 points. Like a $150 is about like an average for a decent player on your team.
Yeah, and it's really hard to kind of pin down how it was definitely an absurd week. From fantasy, it was like unsettling to see the numbers. To be perfectly honest.
Literally, when we started up the show, you're like, was there really a 400-point week?
I'm pretty sure I saw myself lose to like exclusively Jonak, but I'm not 100% sure. But yeah, and listen, it's a little tough to kind of measure what the Outlaws did this week, because how bad did Boston look? I mean, they might be the number 2 overall seed, because on paper, Houston beat the number 2 and the number 3 seeds this week. On paper, they had the most difficult schedule, but in reality, probably not the case, because London looked a little out of sorts. I don't think they're as bad as they looked. I think they played against New York and Houston, who are my number 1 and my number 2 on the stage right now. So, I think they definitely had the most difficult schedule, but, it depends. If we see London rebound, I mean, London was able to take a map off New York, something they weren't able to do against Houston. So I think that might speak to them maybe not being quite as bad as they looked. I think a lot of times, there's teams don't get credit for dominating other teams like they necessarily should. Like if you shut them down that hard, like Houston did London, that's a two-way street. That's Houston played ridiculous. Something we talked about on Foul Play. Muma destroyed Gesture, like completely eliminated the man from the server. He had like no impact whatsoever in that match when you watch it.
And that's something week ever.
It's something we've literally never seen before from Gesture. Like it just doesn't happen. The man is too good to be shut down, but he was here. So we have to wait and see. This could be that Houston, if Boston and London 2-0 next week, both of them, then Houston's just a powerhouse. Like that's kind of the lesson I'm going to take away from it. That this is just literally on their level, but a small sample size. But yeah, Houston does look like the real deal.
I think can give some teams a little bit of leeway, because if London's plan was against I think against New York, they definitely should have tried to switch things up and not tried to face them on even ground, because they're just not as good as New York. that like I don't know anyone who's trying to make, like, if you're trying to make that argument, like, as London, like, okay, good for you, like, it's good to have confidence, but like it's not a good strategy to ride your confidence and try to make that win, because you're just going to lose against a better team. I could maybe see that going against Houston, and then they just got counter-stratted completely and dominated, which didn't work out. So I give some of these teams, less so Boston, because they really have not shown the ability to be versatile since they became a team. But some of these teams, you know, London, I think specifically, might actually take this week and be like, okay, well, we lost very hard matchups. We thought we were going to be able to overpower teams. We didn't. So let's actually just let's switch it up. I could see them doing. I see them needing to do that. Now, whether they're going to do it or not, you know, that's a different story. I think a team like New York and a team like Houston would do that if that were to happen to them, but I don't know if London is necessarily going to. But moving on, in this almost the same vein as Houston, we got to talk about Seoul here. They lost to San Francisco. They lost to the San Francisco Shock and the LA Valiant. LA Valiant, it was a 5-map game. You know, arguably
the battle for the division, though.
Yeah,
I'll say
it is the battle for the division, so could not have meant more for them. I believe there was a tweet or something going out saying that this match between LA Valiant and Seoul Dynasty is potentially worth more than the stage playoffs, just because of the playoff spot, season playoff spot. So the stakes could not have been higher for Seoul. Also, again, it's arguably a good team. I mean, we've talked about LA Valiant, like, you know, they're that wave that at their 0 mark for the sine wave is rank 6. Right now, it looks like they're a little bit on the up potentially. But they lost to San Francisco, man. Like, and it's not like San Francisco came out and pulled a Houston where they're like, okay, San Francisco looks dominant. They lost 3-1 to the Gladiators. So maybe the Gladiators are the actual real deal, and San Francisco is a little bit, but like, you know, what's going on with Seoul? Like, we've been talking, it seems like we've been talking about this for weeks and weeks and weeks and months even, where like Seoul is like this hodgepodge of like, they roll the dice to choose their roster. They put their star support player on Winston, and like, is this, we figured, at least I thought, that what was going to happen was, you know what, they're so far ahead in their division, they're just trying out new stuff so they have it perfected for season, or for stage 4 for the season playoffs. And it's like, guys, time, check the clock, boys. Like, you can't hit that buzzer beater when you're down by 10. You know, what's going on with them?
Well, you can stick a fork in Seoul as far as I'm concerned. I think they're done. I think they're going to fall out of the playoff race entirely. One of my bold predictions going into the season was that one of the Korean teams would mismanage their roster into the ground and not make the playoffs. Now we're sitting here, and there's a very real chance that both Seoul and London do exactly that. So, I mean, it's a brutal situation here. Basically, what Seoul's been doing all season is playing Russian roulette with their roster and just kind of randomly inserting players into the lineup. That's what it's felt like anyways. They never really settled in on anything. And then, you know, they had a lot of bad luck with it. They just kept, you know, shooting themselves in the head when they were playing Russian roulette and over and over again. And then they finally didn't, right? They finally found a lineup that looked like it was going to work and maybe they could build off of. And then the meta switched and they just refused to change it. So now they're playing Russian roulette with a literally fully loaded gun. They don't have the tools on the roster that they want to play with right now to succeed. There's no Reinhardt player on the lineup. Jaehong just rolls out Winston every single time, gets crushed into the ground by the death ball strategy, and they lose. And, you know, the San Francisco Shock matchup was an upset. There's no doubt about it. But I'll be damned if I wasn't in multiple Discord servers right before the match is starting going, I should flip this. I know in my heart I should flip this. San Francisco's going to win. Seoul's still not going to adapt. They're still just going to run Jaehong on tank, and they're going to lose for it. And it's exactly what happened. And of course I didn't flip it anywhere. So I can't even pretend like, you know, you can just sit there and tell me I'm lying. And fine, I'm not going to go find and screenshot me saying it. But yeah, you know, they're lost, and I don't think their coaching staff really has it in them to make the right decision here. So I can't see them making the playoffs under any circumstances at this point.
that is something that, preseason us, I think would be hard struck to believe, which is kind of interesting and exciting, I guess, in a way. When you look at the big picture of it, it's like, man, the
Korean scene's just better.
Literal number one team going in, everyone's number one pick essentially, or I think the lowest we saw it was 3.
They were the consensus number 1, though. Yeah,
they were the consensus number 1 for sure. Not even making playoffs, so that'll be interesting. But let us move on here, and
let's break it down.
We'll break it down, talk about the matches that are coming up this week and who we picked for them. First match of the week we're going to be seeing is Boston Uprising versus the Dallas Fuel. We both got Boston here with the Cowards 3-0. 97% of fans are in favor of Boston. 97's a high number, even though it is Dallas. Boston, A. Smith talked about it on Foul Play. This is a non-zero chance that Dallas could put something together here, considering how Boston looked last week. Like, if they just run a counter strat and Boston tries to overpower them, they might actually be able to pull this one out. It could be a flip.
It's definitely a flip. You're in stage 4 now, guys. If you really want to win the pick'em prizes that we put out there, you've got to take Hail Mary swings. Yeah. If you're not, honestly, if you're below me, think of it that way. Like, right. I should probably be taking Hail Mary swings. I can't win prizes anyways, so I'm just going to try to do as good as I get. Just try to get the right answers as often as I can. 97% is too high on this one for sure. Boston is in shambles. They are not looking good. I do expect them to low-key rebound. Definitely an opportunity for Dallas here, especially if Effect did come back and join the team 2 days ago. Look into that, check it out. I just don't have the information readily available to verify. It didn't even, I did look at the article, and I just didn't seem concrete enough. We don't know that he's going to play in this match regardless, just because
Tweets
he just
alluding to him being back is
right.
As much as we can give.
Right. So, yeah, we'll have to wait and see. But I've got to pick Boston in this one. There's not many teams I would pick Dallas to be able to beat, but the upset potential certainly exists.
97 is high. If you need the Hail Mary, definite flip here. But I guess if you're in the top 5, like I think I'm definitely still in the top 10, but I have fallen precipitously. I'm like in the top, I'm like 6th, I think. But yeah, moving on, we've got Florida Mayhem versus LA Valiant here. We've both got Valiant with the Cowards 3-0. 99% of fans are in favor of Valiant here. I'm not feeling necessarily the same way about the flip on this one.
Yeah, this is interesting because we're seeing Soon play pretty poorly, honestly, for the Valiant as of late. And if he's their Widowmaker player and Saya players playing, I honestly do feel relatively similarly about this one. But Florida's a team that has to kind of make everybody a little bit nervous, right? Because as we saw, it's a different team and a different player, right? But we saw Architect in the last stage single-handedly beat Houston. Just on the sheer power of his sniper rifle shots, just defeated a team. And that is something that Saya player has certainly proven to be capable of. He definitely joined, getting close to the elite of the snipers, both him and Architect. So it's certainly possible. But if I'm being perfectly honest about the Florida Mayhem, I've been kind of really disappointed in Awesome Guy. Slightly better than Swoosh maybe, but I'm not really analyzing them too heavily at the moment as we move into the playoff conversation, and they're really just not in the picture. If they don't go on a run very, very soon, the stage playoffs will slip away from them very fast, which I personally do expect. But yeah, the Valiant are a stronger team on a higher tier than the Florida Mayhem, so clear favorites. But 99% is a number that should be reserved for when New York is Shanghai.
I don't disagree with you there. I don't think. It's a tough flip to call. But if there's going to be, I would definitely flip Boston over. I would definitely flip the first one over this one if you only had to pick one. You could definitely flip both.
This would be very similar to San Francisco beating Seoul last week.
Yeah.
Slightly more, slightly less likely, but it's in the same vein as far as I'm
caliber, for sure. Moving on, we've got your, I guess, top 2 team battle here. We've got Houston Outlaws versus LA Gladiators. We're both picking Houston here with the 3-0. 68% of fans are in favor of Houston, which is slightly. It's close to a coin flip for this platform. But Death, I know you looked at the maps. What are the maps showing us here?
Sure. So the maps echo the voting. It's a close one, if I'm being perfectly honest with you here. We do have Kings Row. It is 6-2 for the Houston Outlaws, 4-1 for the LA Gladiators. Seeing Houston play that map twice this week has me feeling like it's favored, but it also gives the Gladiators some tape about what they plan to do. So I think we need to keep an eye on that one. The win percentages. Yeah, the win percentages are so close. I'm just going to call that map a push. We go to Hanamura. We've got a 3-2 map record for Houston, 3-3 for the Gladiators. Slight advantage to Houston, essentially a push here, though. We go into Oasis, and we are at 4-8 for the Houston Outlaws and 7-5 for the Gladiators. So that one is in favor of Houston. But then on Dorado, we've got a 5
in favor of Gladiators.
Yes, I'm sorry. Yeah, in favor of the Gladiators there. And then Dorado is 5-2 for Houston and 3-4 for the Gladiators, so a decided advantage on Dorado for Houston. I forgot to look up the tiebreaker map score there as well, but I can tell you it's Nepal, right? It is easily one of the better Koth maps for Houston. So I like their ability to go there and be able to take it down if it gets to 5. Very, very likely. Houston and the Gladiators were the 2 teams that I thought really did their homework on this meta, really developed a plan and was able to execute it with significant success. We saw essentially dominations. They both had 7-1 map records on the week. So these are basically, to my mind, V2 teams. Again, things just seem to fit a little nicer for Houston, so I'm giving them the very slight advantage, but I'm not very confident on it, even as a Houston fan and a Houston supporter. The Gladiators this past week, I haven't always had the nicest things to say about Silk Thread since he joined the Gladiators, but it was never about his skill. It was just purely about his fit on the team and how they were using him and how the team seemed to suffer when he was out there. Well, he's been on the team for a little while longer now. He is a much better fit as they're using him, right? He's shown a lot of flexibility to be able to go into maybe a bit of the off-tank role, maybe I think he played the Brigitte a little bit, and he's more than good enough at the tracer role to really kind of pick that up and play that for them to good effect when they need it. So he's given them a lot of good flexibility that maybe they lacked a little bit before, because when they had Asher out there, you knew exactly what was going on. So now on those maps where maybe there's one point where you think you can get away with still playing Tracer, they have somebody that can do it, and then somebody that can also switch to the Junkrat or like a Zarya pick or a Brigitte or something like that a little bit more effectively than I think Asher was able to do. So I love what the Gladiators are doing with Silk Thread and how they look. And I'm really just hoping I can live in that magical Christmas land where both of these teams make it into the playoffs, because if the meta is anything like it is right now, the playoffs will be a better, more enjoyable experience for everybody. Yeah, if that happens.
Definitely a big match to play here. I think it's definitely going to come down to the Brigitte play from both teams, and it's going to be a fun one to watch regardless of who wins. But I do give the slight nod to Houston. Moving on, we've got London Spitfire versus San Francisco Shock, and we both have London here 3-0, though I'm leery about this one for London. Yeah. This one is as close to a coin flip as the platform will get us. It is 52% in favor of London. So when it's a coin flip, we got to bring out our good old friend, the coin. We've got heads for London here. Let's see who coin says.
Try not to be so brutally stupid this week, coin.
Coin is also picking London as well. So the coin is in favor, or is right in line with us as well. But man, oh man, is it just a coin flip here? I mean,
even for the coin, that one could have gone either direction, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we didn't know until we looked at it what it was going to be, so it
Yeah.
could have gone either way. Yeah, this one is, you know, is this really a stage 4 placement match? Is that what we're dealing with here, Blevins? It's been a while since we've used the term placement match. But we've got the London Spitfire up here and falling down, and we've got the San Francisco Shock down here and rising up a little bit. So this one's going to be very interesting. But like I said, I do think London suffered from some brutally tough matchups this past weekend. I think they're a little bit better than they appeared to be on the stage, and I'm expecting that to carry over. San Fran beat a crippled Seoul team that I just don't think is equipped to play in this meta. So I'm reluctant to give them too much. I mean, they get all the credit in the world. They went out there and they beat the team. But now I draw a line at giving them credit when picking the next matchup with that one because of how bad Seoul looks to me. But yeah, I don't know. This one's super, super close. You can definitely flip your own coin if you want.
Yeah.
But we flipped one for you and it agreed with us, so we got the smarter coin.
Yeah, it's I do expect London to do a little bit of their homework from last week and be like, okay, guys, we need to actually do this new meta thing. Let's work on that this week. I expect them to do that. And if they don't, then man, they sure can get you sure can get punished if you're not playing around the Brigitte appropriately. So we could definitely see it. Definitely a real close one. But moving on, we've got LA Gladiators versus Florida Mayhem. We're both picking Gladiators here. 97% of fans are in favor of Gladiators. I don't see this one as a flip.
Don't flip it. Yeah, I really truly believe the order of my power rankings right now would go New York, Houston, LA, in that order. So the Mayhem would be at the bottom half of that list by far. This is probably a 2-tier jump for this meta. I stay far away from picking Florida here.
Probably the craziest person in terms of picking Florida. I haven't gotten that itch in a very long time, sadly, to do that.
If the Outlaws 4-0 the Gladiators, do you consider flipping it?
The Outlaws no, I don't.
No, I think I'm in the same, but I would be much more leery about it. You know, I would say there's that puncher's chance, but I don't even see that puncher's chance on it.
Fissure still exists, so no.
Very good.
Moving on, we've got Philly Fusion versus Shanghai Dragons. I almost gave it the 5-0, but I went with a 3-0 for Philly instead. You also picked Philly 3-0. 97% of the fans are in favor of Philly. I'm not predicting this week to be the one that Shanghai gets a win in.
Yeah, to continue my power rankings, number 4 is the Philadelphia Fusion. So lock this one up. This is maybe a 3-tier jump.
Very much, very, very possibly. Moving on, we've got a potential, very potential close map here. LA Valiant versus Boston Uprising. We both have Valiant here 3-0. 73% of the fans are in favor of Boston, so definitely a closer split here between the fans. But Death, you got maps for us.
Yeah, this is not a map pool that really favors the history of Boston. Now, it's a different meta, everything like that taken into account. Things can certainly change. But when we look at Kings Row, we do have an advantage here for Boston, though it is slight. They're 4-3 to the Valiant's 3-3. Going to Hanamura, Valiant have won it ever, and the Uprising are 0-7. So I think 2-3-1 is the actual map record for the Valiant.
Not
so
great, but
not a great map for
0.
them. Right. Not 0-7, which is a decided advantage here. Now, Oasis, this one's squarely in the Boston camp. It's not a bad map for the Valiant. They're 6-5. Boston is 10-2. I expect them to be able to take this one.
Oasis brought to you by Gillette.
With that said, Oasis right now looks very Farah dependent, and the Boston Uprising don't really have one. So I'm on alert about it, but it's 10-2 is very, very decisive here. It's the map that I think the Uprising, that's the map they beat Houston on last week, I believe. I'm not 100% certain on that. But dive feels very doable there, so I think they're going to be all right on that map. And then when we go into Dorado, we've got an advantage here for the Valiant. They're 4-2 to the Uprising's 2-5. So this one's a close map pool. I'm leaning the Valiant because I said this on Foul Play. They're my definition of your average Overwatch League team. And the Uprising didn't look like an average Overwatch League team to me this past weekend. So I'm going to need them to show me they can at least perform and compete with kind of the average middle of the pack teams before I really buy into it. But yeah, so I don't know. It was Philly and Houston for Boston last week, and they might not be as bad as we think, but they sure did look really bad. And I didn't think Philly played well, even as they beat Boston. So I'm not don't have too much hope for Boston.
Yeah,
but I'm very happy.
Boston may certainly not have crumbled. They also, I mean, with the exception of last stage, every other stage they've had this like little bit of a ramp up period where they've just not been super great, especially with the new meta. Even though it is similar to other metas, they just
no ramp up in stage 3 as they went undefeated, but all the other ones were like the meta significantly shifted or changed, which didn't really happen between 2 and 3.
Right.
We've definitely seen this from.
Yeah. So would not be surprised if Boston Uprising, shapes back up. But I mean, Valiant, they're in a position where they're playing extra hard every single match that they have this stage because the season playoffs are right on the horizon, and they can see them. They can see that first round bye very clearly right now. So
Boston is in second place in the standings right now, and that is exactly 4 games out of just losing out and not making the playoffs. So that's a lot. I still think they're likely to make it. They've got some bad teams on their schedule too, just like everybody else. But it's these matchups here, right, that become very, very crucial for Boston because when you start to lose these winnable ones against the middle of the pack teams that you're sitting above, that's when things get really, really nerve wracking because who can they beat if they can't beat the Valiant? Does the list consist of 3 teams? Because if so, they're out of the playoffs.
Right.
So you definitely got to keep an eye on this. One's very important for the playoffs.
This is a really big playoff implications match. Definitely a match of the week caliber type of game. I do think Outlaws Gladiators, I think, takes the cup for me, but this is an honorable mention for sure. Moving on, we've got New York Excelsior versus Seoul Dynasty. We've both got New York here 3-0. 100% of the fans are in favor of New York. I think the fans are finally listening to us. Don't ever bet against New York. It's dumb. It's just a net negative proposition to do so.
To put some perspective on that, I will be picking New York to beat Houston unless Houston has not lost going into that week. And then I will just to eat at you.
Well, I mean, if you think about it, if New York also hasn't lost, then history would dictate that they're guaranteed to lose.
Right. It starts to really, really line up if both teams are undefeated there. Like,
or also New York.
I can't wait for that week, by the way, if that's true.
Be a great week.
Oh, my God. Set your new apartment on fire.
I'm going to scream at anyone who wears green that week. I'm wearing nothing but blue. I'm dyeing my hair and skin blue. And
nothing tops setting your apartment on fire though, so I win that round.
I don't think you want to deal with the 4'11" gatekeeper that will shoot you out.
I won't even see her coming. It'll be brutal.
She'll slice your Achilles tendon. Let's move on. We've got San Francisco Shock versus Houston Outlaws. We're the hosts are in pretty much agreement down the line.
We're not going to disagree.
Yeah, we're not disagreeing at all here. We've got Houston here 3-0. 81% of the fans are in favor of Houston. I mean, Shock. The first match for Shock is definitely going to show a lot. I mean, even the first match for Houston. I mean, if Shock win and Houston lose, do you flip this one? Their first matches?
No,
if Shock
because
if San Francisco Shock beat London Spitfire and Houston loses to LA Gladiators in any sort of map differential, do you even think about flipping this?
I don't think so, and here's why. Because I don't think it's a knock on anybody to get beat by the LA Gladiators based off how they played in the first week. If you 4-0 me, I might be a little less comfortable about it. But even that's going to be more from just a mental state of the team. How do they react to the 4-0? We've certainly seen enough 4-0s to know they're not going to completely melt down or anything. But Yeah, I can't see flipping this one. I really think the San Francisco Shock have pissed off that team in Houston there with the last 2 wins they pulled off on them. I don't think Houston. There's no chance Houston takes them lightly. They want it. That's to
you could
them
have said the same thing
game.
with London Spitfire in Houston last week too, because they have not taken one either.
Well, I mean, Houston's won it though, right? Like they won in the first.
I mean,
day,
London could have had the same. Oh, okay, I see what you're saying.
Yeah, but I mean, it's right. So, and that is even. I don't know. That's been kind of different, right? Because even when it didn't make sense in the meta, it still happened. Like there's just something about Houston having it, and I don't see that with the Shock matchup. I just really think last stage Houston just did not show up week 5.
They're in that rut. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. They just kind of mailed it in, and I don't think that's happening here. Hearing them talk gets me excited. Like they're pumped, they're confident, they're ready to go, and I don't think a loss to the Gladiators is going to upset that unless it's what they did to London last week. There would have to be a complete shutdown. I don't see that happening.
If San Francisco like dumpsters London, I all of a sudden am. Well, I mean, I don't know if I'd flip it, but I certainly am going to want to watch this match.
This would be a good one. And there's upset potential exists for sure. You can't ignore the fact that they won the last 2. History matters. 100% matters. But it's not like decisive history between these. It's just a 1-game edge for the Shock.
Right.
And only in the bad Houston meta did they beat them.
Yeah. I mean, man. If Shock 2-0s this week, that is a huge statement for them as a team. I mean, I don't know off the top of my head what that means for playoff implications, but I don't think they're mathematically out yet. I mean, stage playoffs, obviously, but at season playoffs, they might be. I don't know.
Mathematically, they are not eliminated yet.
Going 2-0 this week would be huge for them, for sure.
But basically eliminated. I mean, even with that, not only do they need to, like, win out the stage, but they're, like, also going to need some help in there somewhere. Like, it's maybe not quite that bad, but it's
close. Yeah.
Pretty close.
They're going to need. They're probably going to need to beat New York at some point, which is not a good proposition. Unless they don't play them this stage. I don't know that off the top of my head either. But let's move on. We've got Seoul Dynasty versus London Spitfire here. We both got London here. 69% of the fans are in favor of London. And I mean, we've got maps here, but I don't even know if I care about the maps, like, historically, because this is not like the historical Seoul team. Like, this is some new amalgamation, but let's take a look at them.
Yeah, that's fair. It's not really the same London Spitfire team either from the past. That's why I did this one, because I think this one has the potential to be one of the closest matchups of the week. If Houston versus LA ends up decisive in one way or another, this one could definitely go to 5. It could go to 5 and be decided with a 2-1 score because they drew 2 maps because these teams are both so lost right now. Looking at the maps, though. Right. Looking at the maps here, though, we've got Seoul at a 1-4 record on Kings Row. We've got London with 3-5. Bad map for both teams. Anything can happen, but there's a decisive advantage here for London. Going to Hanamura, it's a little bit the same here. We got Hanamura at 2-4, London at 4-2. So it's a decent map for London, but it's not the worst for Seoul either. It could flip, but again, this is 2 maps in favor of London by my count here. Going to Lijiang Tower, we've got a 5-3 record for the Seoul Dynasty and 6-6 for the London Spitfire. So this one is in Seoul's favor. And then on Gibraltar, we've got a 4-4 record for Seoul and then 5-1 for London. So it's going to definitely be interesting. One thing I will say, not that Seoul has shown the capability to even consider running a composition like what Houston did. Houston put out a pretty good blueprint for how to completely bamboozle and confuse the London Spitfire on this map. If Seoul can use it, they can certainly flip this one. This is close, but again, the maps are 3-1 in favor of London, so I'm going to be taking them here. I'm just not fully buying into London being a bottom 4 to 5 team yet. I think they're more, like a 6 seed on the stage or something like that right now. That's my guess for them.
That's what they're certainly looking like, and Seoul is looking much worse than that. So Seoul theoretically could put it into gear at any point in time, right? But they just don't seem to. They don't seem to either care or maybe there's. I'm assuming, I have to assume that there's something just off there that we don't see as spectators. But I can't really I can't speculate too much on that because I don't know anything about it. So
loose nut behind the wheel is my guess.
Yeah, might be. Let's move on. We've got Shanghai Dragons versus NYXL. Easiest 5-0 of my life. You've, of course, only have a 4-0 because I would change it if it were a 5-0 because only I can do that because I made that rule up for some reason. And 99% of the fans are in favor of New York here. Man, there's that 1% diehard Shanghai crowd that plays a high noon pick'em every week that just won't let them have 100%. Like, we'll always pick Shanghai, and they just want to be the person that posts on Reddit like, I predicted the win, I got the points. Like, they do it every week. It's like,
Blevins, I told you it was going to happen.
Shut up.
Had to break out the Reddit.
Shut up. What nice 5-digit ranking, idiot. Like, okay. Good job.
And for what it's worth, the New York Excelsior, according to fans, are 100% going to take the Seoul Dynasty, but it's not quite as good for Shanghai. Funny to me. But anyways, moving on, I do want to give a little bit of analysis here because we skipped over both of these teams previously. I'm a little upset with both of these teams. Shanghai is absolutely dead to me. I'm not even pity rooting for them anymore. Only when it's like, if they manage to win, it helps Houston. Will I even bother to raise the flag? Or
technically winning against NYXL, it helps them because it shoots the gap. I guess. For all intents and purposes, it doesn't do anything. No.
Get dumpstered. I like New York, and I don't like you anymore, Shanghai. You've hurt my feelings. By all of your scrim hours, your 13-hour days that you're putting in, not once did you guys try Brigitte after the patch. It just boggles the mind as you were getting crushed by Mickey, who was playing the Brigitte, to just not switch to it. That map versus Dallas, guys, it was right there. They just had to mirror the compositions, and I think they would have beaten them. And they benched Ado, which is just also insanity. 2 strikes there. Also, your 30 losses are your 3rd strike, so you're out of here, Shanghai. They're not adapting to the meta. They didn't even begin to show it. New York low-key did the same thing in the first match. They ignored the new meta completely. They just said, well, we're going to dive on you. Can you beat that? No. Okay, great. Let's not worry about it then. In the next match, though, they did show a little bit of the Brigitte SBB, flexed over into it. This team can probably play whatever they want, but I want to see them embrace it, right? Now, they don't have to, right? Because they're just on the top and kings of the world and can do whatever they want. But at the end of the day, I don't know. I just want to see them prove to me that they're a complete team, because Ryan Zarya is not something we've ever asked of them before.
Yeah.
And I want to know. I want to make sure they have it in their their toolkit here. And just continuing to dive is great and all. You're going to beat 70% of the league by doing that because you're New York. But again, is this going to be the first stage they lose twice? I don't know. I was thinking maybe before they started to show it in the second match. So they redeemed it a little bit. They brought it back by going to it in the end before the week ended. But at least in the first match, I was almost upset with them because they just looked like another team that just said, forget the new meta. It's going to be fine. And clearly won't be.
So they played against the first match. They played against Florida, and they didn't. And then they played against. That's interesting because I guess against Florida, they just they wanted to see are they going to be able to can they just overpower a team that's very clearly worse than them, even if they're running a bad meta comp? And then against London, they don't want to test anything because London is theoretically a good team, but.
And for what it's worth, I don't think Florida tried to dive into New York either. So they didn't play the things that would force you into the Brigitte pick. So maybe they just didn't have maybe they were very willing to in that matchup. They practiced it plenty.
Right.
That's why I'm kind of
you guys have to make the right pick because you're not going to dive us better than us. You're not going to dive better than us. So if you're not going to change, we're not going to change, and we're going to win that. We already have data on that. We win that match, so that makes sense too.
And London had one tool in their kit this week, and it was dive, and it shuts dive down so hard. If they didn't know, Houston showed it to them, and they took it and adapted it. And New York's so good they can pick up anything probably pretty close to on the fly and be very competitive. But I want to see them maintain dominance and show that they can do it despite metas, because the playoffs are coming soon, and I still got that concern, Blevins, where they choke sometimes. And
I mean,
the stakes
the
haven't
last
quite
two
been.
stage championships definitely not enough to prove that they can win a championship.
It proves they can. But yeah, like you said, it's not quite like the stakes aren't there, and even the players and the teams are like it's not the same.
It's definitely not the same.
If you think the hype of the stage playoffs is going to match the hype of the regular playoffs, you got a treat coming at the end of this stage because the playoffs are going to be on another level.
Here's the other thing, though. They're literally going to have me there screaming louder than that Tyler guy, louder than these screeching people from the Houston fans. I'm going to be the most annoying person there. I'm going to be covered in NYXL stripes. Maybe I'll have a handlebar mustache or something and a mohawk. I don't know, but it's going to be crazy.
Or maybe they choke out and lose to Houston in the second round. We'll never know until we get there, Blevins. We just won't know. I can dream, but honestly, my dream is that it's Houston versus New York in the playoffs, and you guys get to see me and Blevins try to outdo each other.
That's not even possible, though.
To like
is it?
fan gear.
Like they can't be in the finals, right?
Because
they're in the same.
No,
you get to choose. Yeah. Oh, that's right.
It's one big bracket. It's just the 1 and the 2 seed that the division leaders matter for.
Oh, that's
so depending
right.
on how it plays out, and depending on the full structure, it is
sick.
very possible. Yeah, it's not like the NFL where only one AFC team and one FC team goes. Oh, two people from the Atlantic and it almost certainly will go. Which two we don't know, but we know which division's better.
Yeah, that is 100% true. Yeah, for sure. I thought I had one more thing to say about the Dragons, but
Nobody ever
don't care. So I don't care enough to think of it. So let's move on to the last match of the week. We've got Dallas Fuel versus Philadelphia Fusion. We both got Philly here. 99% of the fans are in favor of Philly. I'm not calling a flip here.
No, in fact, you can stay home. You're not needed here. You're not gonna make a difference in this one, I don't think. The only thing that can make a difference here is if bad Philly shows up in spades and they just punt. It almost felt to me like they tried last week though, and Carpe just single-handedly wouldn't allow it and was just going to win that match.
That play on Li Jiang is just
that play nutty.
Man, it almost makes me sad to be like, man, now Pine doesn't have like the best play of the league. But I ain't even mad about that. Like, go ahead. Give it to him. Give the man the trophy.
Carpe and EQO, and mostly Carpe. All EQO did was like turn the Reinhardt shield, which admittedly makes a huge difference in whether or not a Widow can hit the shots.
Right.
But it was like it was Carpe had to hit all the skill shots, and they just like 4v2'd, I think, like the entire enemy team took the point. It'll be number 1 in the plays of the week, or it should be, or I don't know.
Probably the number 1 in the plays of the season.
Pretty close. Yeah, it's got to be. I think like I can count on one hand the number of plays and people that might have a play that beats it, and we won't go through
maybe
that.
The only one I'm thinking of is like the one Pine play on Junkertown where he like single-handedly flanks like 3 London Spitfire players. But
yeah, Pine's got 1 or 2 that might be able to compete with it. I'd need to see him back to back. Linkser's popped off brutally in a few weeks. He could easily be up there as well. Carpe's had a couple other plays, things like that. But the list is small of people that even have a chance. But I don't think anybody beats that play. It was too much fun, and Uber was casting it, which makes it that.
Yeah, so good. But yeah, that's gonna bring us to the end of week number 2.
Show number 2, end of week 1.
Show number 2, and yeah, that's gonna bring us to the end of the double feature.
How'd Houston versus Gladiators go? Because you're living in the future, my friend.
What? No, that's that will bring us to the end of week 2. That's the end of the week.
Oh, 2
I
see what you're saying.
Yeah, that's what I meant. Also, I can't tell you. Only the coin knows. But yeah, we have any reviews that we want to go over, or
no iTunes reviews. It's been a little bit too, guys, so please do, if you haven't left us an iTunes review, please do head over there, no matter what country you're in. And in all honesty, if you're in Europe or anywhere that's not in the United States, make a new account and leave us a review, because I'm really curious if that service we signed up for is actually pulling in the foreign ones. So it would be a big help, though, if you guys could leave us an iTunes review. Just head on over there, hit the 5 stars button, and leave a little note. We'll read it on the show. Next week, we'll take a look at the Around the Payload ones and go from there.
Yeah. But yeah, that's going to be it, guys. Join the Discord, discord.me/highnoonpodcast. That's where all the happening stuff is, and especially as we draw closer and closer to the finals as well as BlizzCon. If any of you guys are going to be at those events live, that's where we're going to be keeping in touch with people. We'll have like groups and stuff for that, so we can keep in touch.
I demand to meet Electrical Skateboard.
You can, but you need to know how to speak binary.
I was just going to say, I'll just put his name tag on a laptop or something like that. And we'll take a picture with it.
For sure. Oh, one thing I forgot to mention was that the Overwatch World Cup community thing was supposed to be announced last Thursday, but they're like delayed when the announcement's going to be. Mm-hmm. So like, I'm still waiting to see if I hit the top 10. Who knows? No idea.
Which means you still have time to help him, though. I think voting is still open for him.
I don't know if that's true, but maybe it is. But you can definitely check it out. Go to my Twitter @the_Blevins. The pinned tweet there is where you can vote. If you haven't already, like as soon as you possibly can do that, it will help immensely. And once the top 10's released, if I'm there, then the real campaign starts. But we got to get there first. So thanks everyone.
Is the real campaign the write-in death blow campaign? Because that's the campaign I'll be tweeting about.
Yes, maybe. I don't know. We'll see. It's going to happen. Everything's going to happen. But yeah, that's going to be it, guys. You can always check out everything that we do at highnoonpodcast.com. Make sure you do leave a review over at on iTunes or whatever platform you do use to listen to the podcast. Really does help out a ton. But I think that's going to be it. Anything I'm missing here that's important? I don't think so.
No, that should be it. Good luck. Go Houston. And after that first match is over against the Gladiators, go Gladiators. Shields up. We'll do that afterwards. I'll save your emojis or whatever.
Yeah, save those for the second match. Save those for the second match. But guys, that is going to be it for Deathblow. I am the Blevins, and remember, it's high noon.
Got his boots and he put on his hat. He threw the coin away that same day. It's in his past and he's not looking back. He says, finding mine now, God's my way. He's not good, but he sure ain't bad. He'll make amends for the sins that he has. He says, I'll change the world one bullet at a time till I find mine.
Yes, I was told I'd be able to play against a team that was not the Dragons, and then I was not able to play. I only played one map against the Dragons. It was not what I wanted.